Hello everyone, Aaron Spears here, Young Adult Librarian at the Westlake Porter Public Library. This is our third session of our Summer Teen Writers Workshop. It is live on Zoom every other Wednesday in June and July, although the last date of July 21st is coming up. So if you're watching this now, the registration for that is open, so go ahead and join us live in person. If you can't make it to that specified date and time for the Summer Teen Writers Workshop, we're doing these videos. So it's basically an on-demand program for you through our YouTube channel. So like I said, this is the third one. If you're interested, go back and check out the other ones first. They're not exactly cumulative, so you can jump in on any one of these at any given time. But if you do go through them in order, it does build through all of the layers and writing prompts and tips to create an amazing, hopefully amazing, short story of your own. This is the Summer Teen Writers Workshop, session number 3, Story Structure and Plots. In this particular one, same as the previous ones, we do meet on Zoom every other Wednesday, June and July. If you want to join us live, again, they're obviously up on YouTube. This is where you're watching it at. Each week we're doing a theme such as story structure and plots for today. Timed writing prompts. There's built-in time for you to write at the end, which isn't included on the video, but is included if you're here live in the program. And we like to throw out a curveball at the end to try to incorporate into your story. It maybe isn't something that you're going to actually keep in your story, but it's kind of a fun writing exercise to try out like a really wild what-if scenario, no matter what type of story you're working on. So today's prompts, we're going to be doing a series in 2 different bundles, basically. One is going to be about structuring, determining structure actually even before you write, which is a pretty interesting way to go about writing. And then we're going to test out what we generate in those prompts with 4 classic plots that are going to kind of test drive the story elements that you have brainstormed. So structuring before you write is kind of a interesting way to do it, because generally you'd think, oh, I have this whole story idea and I have all these scenes, I have all these characters, now I got to structure this and make sure it's structured properly. Well, since we're staying short story focused in this particular workshop, this story or this idea, this writing prompt will allow you to brainstorm and create an idea. So if you are someone who has come to this video or comes to the workshop and you have an idea, that's great. Just use these writing prompts to more fully explore that idea. But if you're here searching for an idea, perfectly fine too. This works for everybody. So prompt number 1 is what we're calling the question. So this is, what is a central question that you want to explore? Or if you do already have an idea, what is the central question in your story idea? You're going to want to add in an action also, though, within that central question you have. Add in an action that makes things worse. You want this is known as an inciting incident sometimes. You want to really give your character a challenge. I keep using, I don't know why I keep going to it, but I keep using Lord of the Rings in the workshop this summer and also in these videos as an example. The central question of Lord of the Rings could be, how much can a friendship be tested? There's a central friendship between Frodo and Sam in that one, and it's clearly tested within the story. And an action that may make things worse is they're tested because they're going on this great journey to destroy the ring. Obviously, there's a lot of peril and dangers involved with that, but you can add in an action that makes things worse, like, okay, well, now there's the Gollum character. Like, he's going to be coming after you as well and wants to possess the ring himself. So like one more thing that adds to the tension that makes things worse for your character. So we'll give that one a minute or two to kind of brainstorm through the question you want to explore. All right, prompt number 2 here is going to be then the synopsis. So you've got the question down, if not exactly down. We've got some general ideas. Maybe you've got more than one question you want to explore now, and we're going to kind of whittle this down. So for the synopsis, you want to write out a couple of sentences that let the reader know a couple of things. 3 things, actually. You want to know the main character at the center of your question. You want to know the theme, and you want to know the world of the story. So don't go too crazy, just, a few sentences. Maybe it takes a couple of quick drafts to sketch this out. This organizes some basic elements around your question. And the theme itself is really kind of a rewording of the question. And so once you know what kind of question you want to narrow in on, explore that as a theme rather than in the form of a question. And the world of your story is really what setting do you want to explore that particular question in? Would that be best explored in like 1950s, like suburban Paris? Is this going to be a sci-fi story? So the central question of friendship is going to be explored on a colony on Mars or wherever, or a completely fictional world that you're creating for this particular short story. All right, now we're going to take the question and the synopsis you have, keep those nearby, and we're going to expand out this narrative that you're slowly developing with 6 steps. So this will kind of draw out certain aspects of your story, and at the end of the 6 steps, we're going to have kind of the skeleton of your short story that we can play around with some of our plot exercises. So you may not have the answers to all of these questions, these prompts we're going to propose to you right now, but that's okay. This is still the brainstorming end of it. So you may be 4 or 5 prompts in and realize, oh, prompt number 2, I can do that for that. So go back and make your notes appropriate for that one. So let's jump in. Remember, this is brainstorming. Revise as needed. Go with the flow. No ideas too crazy. Let's start exploring this central question and synopsis that you have. So prompt number 1 is want. What does your main character want? What is their goal? Is it a physical goal? Is it an emotional goal? Is it a total pie in the sky dream of like, I want to win the lottery? Whatever that want is, that goal that your character has, write that down, explore it, maybe think about it a little bit, try out some different goals, maybe try to narrow down the goal, maybe try to expand out the goal a little bit. And then also, if you have the time, and want to expand this out to your other characters, what are the other side characters' goals if you have side characters right now? So give this a minute or so and get some exploring done. All right, prompt number 2 is called misconception. So the goal and the wants we just brainstormed, we were just discovering about these characters, about this story, about this question, about this theme. What if what your character wants won't bring happiness? What if the true goal is discovered along the way? So how is this initial goal discovered to be false? So we have that goal. This is a new thing. This is misconception. So what if your character discovers that the initial goal isn't really what they want? How is this initial goal discovered to be false, and what maybe is the true goal that could be discovered by your character? All right, prompt number 3 is action. This is the engine to your narrative. This propels your story. This would compel the reader to keep going with your story. What will your character do to achieve their goal? Now, we're not doing the misconception now. That was just its own prompt. This is the overall goal. So what would your character do in order to achieve their goal? Are they willing to compromise their morals to achieve their goal? Are they willing to sacrifice a friendship to achieve their goal? You know, that sort of thing. So really think through some really dramatic stakes. What could possibly be put in front of your character as an obstacle to obtain their goal? All right, prompt number 4 is doomed. This is when the bottom falls out. All is lost. Your character feels like this is the end. There's no way we're going to get past this. What is this? What is the lowest point for your main character? And while they're at their lowest point, the most adversarial situation they've been in so far in your story, do they maintain their friendships? Do they have friendships going along this whole time? Are they totally isolated? Not only what is the lowest point for your character, but how do they react to it? What tools do they have at their disposal to physically and or emotionally get through this lowest point? Prompt number 5 in this section is revelation. when your character realizes what they really need to do to obtain their goal. So this is a realization. Oh, so ideally, maybe it's even in within their reach if they do a few things. So when your character realizes what they really need to do to obtain their goal, do they follow through with it, or do they adapt their goal? And how does that affect them realizing what really has to be done in order to achieve their goal? Number 6 is growing. This is the last one here. So think of this kind of as your resolution, as your ending. After the revelation, your character ideally grows. Where is your character at mentally, physically, emotionally at the end of this quest, this journey, this story, versus where they were at the beginning? Ideally, they are a changed character. And if they aren't a changed character, that's kind of interesting too. How does that come about? What about the things that happened didn't change them? So how does your character grow, and where is your character at the end versus where they were at the very beginning? All right, now we're going to take the question you've got done, the synopsis, the what, the misconception, the action, the doom, the revelations, the growth. Keep all of that kind of around you, in front of you for quick reference, and we're going to test out all of those things, all of those structural things that we just did with some plots. So I pulled out 4 classic plots to see how your story works. So as you start plugging in all of those elements that you just generated into these 4 different classic plot structures, you may discover that you have a secret tragedy on your hands that you thought was an adventure story. Or you may have like a romantic drama on your hands that turns out is actually a comedy. Because when you plug them into these different plot structures, these different classic plot structures, you kind of discover new things about your story that maybe you didn't notice were there. Or these stories are adaptable to these different plots, and something really clicks for you. And you're like, oh my gosh, you know what? I do want to write this as a comedy now. So let's jump in with the first one. The first one is called Freytag's Pyramid. This is named after a 19th century German novelist and playwright, of which I've read none of his stuff. I've just read about his plot structure, and this is what he's got. This is a formula for tragedy. So think about this as, Romeo and Juliet, classic Shakespearean tragedy. You have your introduction. The status quo is established. The world that your characters inhabit is introduced and explained to the reader. You have a rise or rising action in which your protagonist pursues goals. The stakes, the dramatic stakes, are heightened, and it builds and builds to the climax in which your character, your protagonist, is at a point of no return. This is happening. I'm committed to this. I'm on a journey. Here's where we go. And then you move into the return, or the fall, as it's called. This is after the climax. More tension builds to, and what is it building to? It's building to the catastrophe at the end. Worst fears come true. Again, this is a tragedy. So plug in those elements that you have that we've already generated into this structure and see if maybe you do have the workings of a tragedy on your hands. Structure number 2. This actually comes from Dan Harmon, fairly famous these days as a creator and writer for Rick and Morty. I think he's written for Community and some other things, known as a comedy writer. So we're switching from tragedy to comedy in this particular one. This is what he calls the story circle, which, as you can see, is a circle with all these different pie shapes on here. I really like this for short story writing and structuring or plotting, because he does this for Rick and Morty and Community. These are both shows that are about 22 minutes long. So it's perfect for short story templates. In fact, you've got 8 scenes here, basically. So if you plug in what you've already done or create scenes to go along with, number 1, they're in a zone of comfort. That is the introduction. That's the status quo. That's introducing the world of your character to the audience. But the character wants something. What do they want? What's their goal? What's their want? They enter an unfamiliar situation. They head out on their journey. They adapt to that because they have certain skills. They can adapt to it. Number 5, they get what they wanted. But number 6, they pay a heavy price. The consequences for realizing one's goals. They then return to their familiar situation having changed. And that could be tragically or comedically, whichever one you want to do. So that gives you basically 8 scenes to a short story. So explore those with the items you've already generated in our writing prompts. Structure number 3 is the Fichtian curve. This one I find really interesting because this structure is going to give you perfect pacing for if you're doing an action story or if you're doing a mystery or a murder mystery even in particular. It skips the whole status quo setup. It jumps right into the action. It begins immediately with rising action followed by a series of fast-paced obstacles. Each obstacle comes bam, bam, bam. You got it right there. You got crisis, 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 and then the climax. It's constantly rising action and then immediate falling action after the climax, and we're out. We're done with the story. This is great for, it's a great structure if you want to, you start with maybe a murder or a body is discovered. It's a mystery. And you could have the little loops underneath each crisis can be moments for flashbacks to give a little bit more character development. But then each crisis point could be a new reveal of information to the audience. If it's a true mystery, each crisis point maybe could point towards a certain character, as guilty. Or each crisis point could be a reveal of a new clue to the audience, and it slowly builds to, can the audience figure out the mystery or not? So start plugging in some of the stuff you've already brainstormed into the crisis points. Try to build your action continuously up to the climax and see how that goes for the story you're working on. All right, structure number 4 is, it's a lot on the screen here, I know, but it's a lot of the stuff that basically we've already kind of gone over. This is the 7-point story structure. Dan Wells, the author, has created and written extensively about this one. He actually recommends for this one that you start at the end. So if you know what your ending is going to be, which at this point you may, go ahead and put that in and then work backwards so that you'll know how to plug in certain bits of the story starting from the resolution in this case and working its way backwards. If you don't work backwards, you're going to start off with your hook. This is the protagonist's current situation. This is the status quo we've mentioned earlier. This is introducing the audience to your protagonist, to your main character's current situation, and then the call to adventure is accepted. That is plot point number 1. You get a setback. You can't realize your goals right away. You get a main setback. Your protagonist steps up and is committed to this goal by the midpoint. Pinch point number 2 is that the plans fail. This isn't working. I don't know if we can go on. This isn't quite the lowest point, or this, I'm sorry, in this structure, this is actually the lowest point for your character. So this is that doomed section for pinch point number 2. And then plot point 2, right there close to the end towards the resolution, they realize, oh, this is what I need to do to succeed here. That's the revelation. So you plug your revelation in there, and then the conflict resolves in your character growth. So plug in what you've already written so far into this one to see if the 7-point story structure works for you. All right, in the live on Zoom version, this is when we have about 15-20 minutes of just dedicated writing time. Keep exploring those ideas. Hopefully something there piqued your interest or really got your brain going. Or, it's writing, it's brainstorming. Sometimes you just throw it all out and you start from scratch somewhere else. The curveball, we always put a curveball at you towards the end of our sessions here, and that is the time for it right now. The curveball for this particular series of prompts was one of your main character's friends turns out to be a figment of their imagination this whole time. So that may not be something you want to keep in your story or you're going to use in your story, but think about that maybe just as a writing exercise. Sketch out what would that do to your story if one of your main character's friends turned out to be a figment of their imagination. All right, that's going to do it for this particular video. Join us if you want live on Zoom on July 21st. I have to keep checking my cheat sheet over here because I can't remember the date. That'll be live on Zoom with a YouTube video to follow. So hope to see you all either live then or enjoy the video afterwards at your own convenience. And happy writing, everybody.